Yeah. The mic might go live.
Yeah, no, it will.
Oh, yeah.
7 seconds. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's that time again. Wait, we're looking at a candle over there. We're on live on Facebook at the moment, and about 20-some seconds until we go live in the world.
Sitting there trying how to get this shadow out of my face from the lighting.
There, I'll make it there. How's
Oh,
that?
there it goes.
Whoa, that's better.
Yeah, it's starting to look like something on the Outer Limits. Now it's starting to look a little
Is
bit
that better? Okay, there we
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Oh, it's
Where's
'cause
Rod
I'm missing
Serling?
that one. All right, everybody, stand by 10 seconds. Let's see what we got here. You know what they do? They have to do this thing called a disclaimer.
Oh, the disclaimer.
Yeah, the disclaimer. This is,
It's time for Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein. Have a medical question? Call 407. It's time for Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein. Have a medical question? Call 407-422-1212. That's 407-422-1212 or text 23680.
wow, that's a pretty fancy intro you
That
got.
was nice.
That was nice. And there's Dr. David Klein with us today. How are you?
I'm really feeling pretty darn good. It is a marvelous Sunday here in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it is. We are live, as the lady just said. So if you've got some medical questions, Dr. David Klein probably has a good answer for you. Whether it's fibromyalgia or I tinkle when I laugh.
There we go.
That's a good one. Or I am just not getting enough sleep.
Let's talk about that today. What do you
Okay,
think?
that sounds like a plan.
Let's talk about sleep. You know, something that puts a lot of people to sleep. But actually it's a very, very interesting topic. And it's one that really affects every person that's alive. People that are dead, they're sleeping. I mean, that's just the end of it. They're gone. All right? But the rest of us, we have to spend a certain amount of time per day in REM sleep or we die. It's very interesting. You can actually drive people crazy by denying them sleep.
Wow.
The Chinese water torture, Korean War. They'd lay the GI back and drop a little drop of water. Same people that brought you the coronavirus, by the way, brought you the Chinese water torture.
Wuhan.
Just have to say so. 70 years ago? Gotta love them. They haven't changed much. So what happened? Okay, a little drop of water. So you can't concentrate. You can't sleep. You can't do this. You can't do that. And the sleep deprivation, the sensory overload, and you go nuts. There are probably still people, elderly, very elderly, in Korea, okay, that went down that thought they were Korean after the end of the torture. So there are a lot of people that never came home after the Korean War as a result of this type of torture. So what is it about sleep? Okay, we're supposed to get between 8 and 10 hours of sleep every night. Now think about that for a second, because most of the people listening go, he's wrong, that's not true, I only get 6 hours. Yeah, and you feel like crud. Okay, and here's what it's really all about. You need to hit at least 3 REM cycles, or your growth hormone level won't go up. It won't go to where it needs to go. With sleep, what does it do? So your body resets. Temperature drops, okay, during the period of time that you're sleeping. So you go to sleep, melatonin gets kicked out, ACTH gets kicked out of the pituitary gland, and you start to doze off. The thyroid starts to turn off, and the temperature starts to drop, and you will drop a half a degree or so during the time of going to sleep and then hitting your deepest plane of sleep at 3 or 4 in the morning. And if this does not happen, you wake up feeling bad. So you can actually make anybody. People say, well, what about fibromyalgia? Well, who cares? Okay, long and short of it, it's not really a disease anyway. It's a syndrome, which gets me hate mail, but it happens to be true. But you can take a normal, healthy, well-adjusted individual and make them depressed by simply depriving them of sleep. And you can do this easily enough with a thumbtack. You tape it to their buttock. When they roll over, it wakes them up. You can't get to sleep. That's pretty much what happens if you have a bad mattress. That's what happens if you have a spouse that snores. That's pretty much what happens if you live next to a fire station. Think about it. So if you can't get into a good plane of sleep and stay there, depression, weight gain, okay, these two things go hand in hand, and your immune system takes a hit. So if I wanted to make somebody depressed, I would deprive them of sleep. And you can do it with noise, you can do it with light, you can do it with sound, you can do it with other types of stimulation. You can do it with worry, anxiety. So not sleeping leads to depression. Not sleeping also leads to, wouldn't you know it, fibromyalgia. You can make anybody develop the symptoms of fibromyalgia by simply depriving them of sleep. It changes your hormone balance. It's marvelously subtle way of injuring people. Kids do it to parents all the time. You know, you come home because you're a shift worker and the kids are out there making noise. Okay, you get a little crabby. Sometimes you get a lot crabby, and sometimes you go off the edge. All right, you know why is it? What happened with postal workers? Yeah, I'm going to go postal, because many of them work all night long. Okay, and when you work, when your body says sleep, it makes you weird. So, you know, what do? You know, when I was in residency, you know, we had to work sometimes 36, 48 hours in a row, okay, to the point where you start hallucinating. Now, you might get enough sleep in a 2-day or 3-day period. You might actually get 12 hours over 2 or 3 days. For some people, that's a lot. But it does make you weird, and it happens very, very quickly. So what are the health implications? Okay, what are the health implications of lack of sleep? One of the first things that happens, okay, is weight goes up. Now think about that one for a second. Well, you know, I can't get my weight off. One of the first things as a physician, first things that we do is get people to sleep. You just have to figure out how.
Now, I would have thought it was different.
No, not at all. No sleep. Okay, not enough sleep, you get fat. It happens to everybody. Sleep apnea keeps you from hitting deep planes of sleep, and you get fat. You start off fat and you get fatter. If you can't get into a good night's rest, cortisol doesn't go up, which in fact makes you fatter. You know, if you listen to the TV ads, you know, oh well, cortisol makes you fat. It really doesn't actually. It happens if you have Cushing's. We're talking about the regular population. You don't have these purple lines going up and down your stomach. No.
Okay.
No, you just have a big stomach. So what else does it do? Okay, so it damages your thyroid. Very interesting how this works. Cortisol levels and thyroid work in tandem. So when your cortisol levels take a hit, the thyroid takes a hit. And then, wouldn't you know it, the gonads follow. So, you know, these problems with female hormonal issues, very near and dear to my heart, something that I do all day long. Closely related is men's health. You know, the difference is subtle, but not that subtle. When men have difficulties with testosterone, it usually occurs in the morning because that's when the adrenal glands kick in. So how does a guy typically know that he's in real trouble? Because he can't tap things out properly first thing in the morning. So the urologists, well, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, Mr. Jones, you think you have ED. You know, how often are you able to engage in let's say, meaningful sexual intercourse with your wife? Well, 2 or 3 times a week. Okay, fine. You're actually above average for this population here. Okay, believe it or not. I mean, I find that it's, you know, horrible. However, you know, that's just me, you know, I'm a gourmand. But so what are you really looking at? Okay, you know, testosterone levels diminish with age. But when does it really go critical? It goes critical when testosterone hits a particular level, which it's supposed to be its highest first thing in the morning. So if you look down and things aren't working, that's when fear goes to panic. Women, they don't seem to have the same level of concern typically, okay, but the mechanism is entirely different. You know, so with women, it's usually a libido issue. I just don't feel like doing it anymore. You know, I'll put up with him or her. I'll do whatever I need to do. But, okay, much of this starts as a sleep issue. So why do I care? Because there are lots of ways to help people sleep. Some of them are really, really good, and a lot of them really, really stink. Like ask Tiger Woods. Okay, there's a guy. There's a guy. Yeah, there's a guy that it cost him an ungodly amount of money, and his wife, who, by the way, was really very hot. Okay, why? Because he was doing Ambien and got caught. You know, just the way that it goes. I mean, you know, it's long been said that if he would have done better had he really had a driver, you know, instead of a putter. You know, his windows were knocked out by a driver.
Thank you for not going to the really deep one.
Yeah, I know what I was going to say, but then I decided not to because it's not the nighttime show just yet.
No.
So what do we do? Okay, so how do you go ahead and address most sleep issues? So people come in to see me all the time, and I ask this question, and they go, "Oh well, I'm taking Ambien." That doesn't really make you sleep.
No.
It makes you forget that you didn't sleep. So just for fun, okay, I used to have a girlfriend who was addicted to Ambien. Ooh. Yeah, so she would take her Ambien around 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then I'd wake her up, have her get dressed, and we'd go out on the town.
Oh, no. Please tell me this isn't a true story.
Oh, it's very, very true. So we were thrown out of some of the better bars downtown. Yeah, she was very playful when she had that Ambien and remembered nothing.
Oh, Doc.
Okay, remembered nothing.
Some of these stories are just stories.
Yeah, right. Okay, so what do you take? Well, what about temazepam, Restoril? What about Ambien? What about lorazepam? What about Ativan? What about the same thing? What about Xanax?
What about melatonin?
Well, we'll talk about melatonin after this break.
That's a good idea. If you want to get on board with some medical questions, we already have some texts as well. 23680 is the text line, and you can call in and talk to our operator who will screen you properly at 407-422-1212. You can always check out Dr. David Klein on stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com. We'll be right back in just a moment. You are listening to Stages of Life Radio on News Radio, WFLA Orlando. Clear?
Good.
All right. So we've got some questions from on our online studios here on Facebook. What can a female take for a UTI?
Depends. Okay, there are a lot. Usually, when somebody comes in and asks me about this, I'll ask this question first: is this something that happens frequently? If the answer is yes, we need to make sure that it's not a behavioral issue. What does it mean? It means with regards to sexual intercourse, if you're not careful, urinary tract infections occur, so you have to have that talk. And that talk involves hygiene. So could it be hygienic? The answer is yes. Did it follow, let's say, childbirth? Did it follow cancer treatment? There are lots of ways that you can end up with issues with urinary tract infections. So what's the best way to treat it? Is to figure out why. Once you figure out that it's not, once you assume that it's not structural, and you find out that it's not, let's just say, pathological. Somebody may have kidney stones or bladder stones that can cause recurrent urinary tract infections.
These are symptoms. Again,
These
tract
are, exactly.
infection
It's a
is a symptom of
of
something else.
Yeah, and so after that, typically what I do, if I have somebody with recurrent urinary tract infection, I'm going to assume that that's what this is because nobody ever asks about an acute UTI. The first time you get it, you don't even think about it. Is I start them on a product called D-mannose. That's D-MANNOSE. And D-mannose is a sugar, believe it or not, but it's non-absorbed. So you take the capsules, 2 of them. Okay, they make it into the bloodstream, but your body does not consume it. So it ends up being excreted in the urine. Gets concentrated in the urine, ends up going down through the ureter into the bladder and out. But it does something magical. It hits a protein called D-mannose binding lectin on bacterial walls. This is where the bacteria kind of get sticky and attached to the ureter or attached to the bladder. And you wash them out. It's the darndest way to do things. It costs about, I don't know, $10, $15 a month to do this. And you stay on the D-mannose for a period of about 3 months. It allows the system to purge itself. Second thing is an herb called Uva ursi. That's UVAURSI. Uva ursi is something that you can take for a long period of time. So if you've got chronic UTIs, you can take a tablet of this once a day and keep yourself out of trouble. For the acute treatment of a recurrent illness, then you start asking questions. Okay, like what does your urine stink? Does it turn dark? Is it frothy looking? Okay, and then you do something called a DNA analysis on it, and then you find out what the bug is. Now this is where it gets real interesting. Okay, so if you have one bug, let's say it's just E. coli, that's usually hygienic. We have to have that talk, and sometimes you'd be surprised.
Got to clean your stuff.
Got to clean.
Got 1 minute.
Yeah, but what we do is a DNA analysis, and then you start looking at what the bug is. If it's Escherichia faecalis, okay, or E. coli, it's hygienic. But then there are a bunch of them, okay, or if you have several, okay, then you start thinking about maybe a fistula between the bladder and the colon. That can happen. It's a little connection. So you end up bearing down that bowel movement, and you push a little bit of stool from your colon into your bladder. That is a fast way to get a UTI, and they do. And we pick those up about 3 to 4 times a year. The way you figure that out is by speciating the bacterium. That means you do the DNA analysis and see what the heck you got. But my favorite antibiotic prescription is doxycycline. Why? Because it cleans out just about everything, and it does it quickly. Doesn't give you the real diagnosis, though, now does it?
Yeah, it does not. This is just ours to let you know to wrap it up because we're getting ready to go back on the radio. Yep.
We get back to our real job here shortly.
No, everybody is appreciated, really. All of you that are watching, share the feed.
We love you.
Share the feed, guys. We'll be back to answer your online questions in a moment.
And
right
you guys
now.
get priority.
I know, right? You do. You even get to see the doc.
Yeah, I guess for that's everything.
Welcome back to Stages of Life Radio. I am Melissa Fox, along with Dr. David Klein. You can find Stages of Life Medical Institute at the intersection of I-4 and 434 in Longwood, Florida. Just go to stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com. Any of the products, nutraceuticals or otherwise, that are mentioned today, you can find at stagesoflifevitamins.com. And you can always give them a call during office hours at 407-679-3337. All right, we got the text line on fire right now, Doc.
Cool. That's always a good thing.
So we'll get back to the melatonin and the sleep stuff in a moment, but first we have an early entry here. And again, the text line is 23680. This one says, I hear the COVID vaccine has been produced with nanotechnology. Could you explain what that means?
Well, it means that you've been listening to the wrong blogs. Okay, nobody cares enough about you to develop mini micro robots to float around in your bloodstream. Okay, nobody really cares about you that much.
Nanotechnology.
It's not going to happen. Why not worry about people inserting RF chips while you're sleeping? That was some years back. Well, I can't have that because
Well,
they're
they were
shots.
thinking that was going to be in the vaccine, which is not possible.
It's not
because
possible anyway.
A vaccine is fluid.
Oh, no. Okay. The nanotechnology thing is science fiction right now.
Okay.
And they're looking at using these sorts of things to clear strokes out, so you can go in there and actually clear out a blood vessel, but they don't exist yet. This is something of science fiction right now.
It doesn't mean it won't come.
Doesn't
but
mean
it's
it won't
not
come.
here now.
No, but it also doesn't mean that somebody's going to give you a $15 shot, a COVID shot, and do this 10 million times in the course of 6 weeks. This is not going to happen. Get the COVID vaccine. Here's the skinny on this one. COVID vaccine has been around for years, many, many years. In animals, this is a vaccine for a bug, a virus that is really a veterinary friend. We have seen this one many, many times. It hits dogs, cats, pigs, sheep, cattle, horses. It's just the way that it goes. Well, they say, well, it came from a bat. What do you think? That the bat just went out and grabbed it from it just. So the shot exists, the inoculation exists, and what they have to do is they have to test it for human safety. Do they have to tweak it against what are called COVID, particles? And the answer is yes. Okay, this is the way these things go. So get it. Okay, this is how we're all going to go back to work. This is how we're going to open the country up. If anything else, it is the patriotic thing to do. I'm planning to get the first one that I'm just able to get.
Okay.
And so I encourage you to do the same thing.
All right, cool enough. Let's go on to the next text. Again, 23680 is the number if you would like to text a question to Dr. David Klein. This gal says she's 50 years old. She has major pain in the middle of her very bottom of the back. The pain almost drops her when she's standing up. Don't know if it's her spine or middle of her hips.
Okay, it could be either. There are a couple things that'll do this. So the question I would ask is, does it hurt when you lie down on your stomach? And are you able to lie down on your stomach? There's a bursa that exists between every spinous process. Those are those nubbins of bone right down the center of your back. When you go to arch your back backwards, they get thrust together, like if somebody squeezed your knuckles together, and then it hurts. So when you're walking, as opposed to sitting, you're throwing your shoulders back, and it makes those things compress. So the question is, does it hurt when you lie down on your stomach? If the answer is affirmative, it is the easiest thing in the world to fix. And what you do is you can either use a topical or transdermal anti-inflammatory, which is my preferred way to do it. To make diagnosis and to speed the process up, you can take a TB syringe, that's a tuberculosis syringe, real small thing, and drop a little bit of steroid into that bursa, and it'll settle it down to about 20 seconds. Now, what else could it be? Could be sacroiliac, could be iliolumbar ligament, impinging something called the dorsal root of L5. Those are the most likely possibilities. But if it's at midline, it's probably a bursitis, and it's very easy to fix.
She's texted on to say a tiny bit of pain when she lays on her stomach. And also, are you taking Humana patients?
Humana is one of they're really bad to us, okay? So we don't participate with Humana, but we help you file with them. So, there's going to be some out-of-pocket expense if you have out-of-network benefits. But otherwise, you're stuck with your pain. So you got to make a decision. We take all the same insurance companies that your hairdresser takes. All right. So what do? That's how we do it. Have we ever had Humana? The answer is no, because they goofed me over one time when I agreed. It was a mistake, but I agreed to do it, and that was to take Medicaid, and that was run by Humana, and they took us and then they beat us silly. Okay, with a stick, and so I had to drop out.
Now I understand that you're putting together something called travel testing.
Oh yeah, Oh, this is wild. Okay, if I don't start a new business every 6 to 8 weeks, then I'm really check my pulse. All right. So what we did is we looked around and started getting referrals, okay, for people that are having to travel abroad. Some people that have to travel domestically. So in order for you to go from point A to point B, if let's say the government of the Bahamas tells you that you need a PCR within 72 hours of departure, where do you go? We all know about trying to get COVID testing around this place because it could take you up to 3-4 weeks to get the results. It's 5 to 7 days if you're lucky. And if you're really lucky, you get your results and not somebody else's.
Good point.
So we started a business. And the business was getting people off the ground into where they need to go. And so we can actually get the COVID results for you in 24 hours or less.
Nice.
It is wickedly cool, and it's still done very reasonably. So what do? We march you into the office. We have 3 locations to do this: Longwood, St. Augustine, and Jacksonville. So if you get there between certain hours, we can run that for you that evening. Have the results by 3 o'clock in the morning, and then boom, you get the results by email. Very slick. Or you can run the chances of not having your vacation. Good business.
All right, so how do we get on top of this travel PCR thing?
Okay, well, we have a COVID hotline. It's at 407-636-3945. And the guy that's supposed to answer that phone is Robert. Or you can call me at 407-679-3337, which is in Longwood, and then we will set it up for you. We'll find out where you are, what you need to have done, and then go about it. So we've been sending people all over the world with this, and folks from all over are traveling long distances to get it, because otherwise they can't get back to the UAE, they can't get back to Qatar, they can't get back to Thailand, they can't get to Japan. We're sending people all over the place.
Okay, so if you're listening right now and you're just driving through town or something and you heard this and you know you need this, FloridaLaboratoryAnalysis.com for more information on the rapid COVID testing.
Yeah, and it's PCR. This is the real deal. This is not one of these little benchtop models. This is the top drawer PCR. Okay, it's the same one that the CDC uses, but we'll put you right to the front of the line and run it. It's very, very simple. It's not like the government. Well, here's a form, and we'll call you back in 6 weeks.
Right, tell you what happened. Maybe we'll tell your neighbor. Who knows? Here's a question: how low does the positivity number have to be before we can open everything up?
Okay, well, the better question. Okay, and this was one I was on. I guess it was last week on FLA, and they would say, "Well, what about herd immunity?" All pandemics end. It may not seem this way to you right now, but I've been through a bunch of pandemics. And what happens with this sort of a thing, in fact, every year we have one. It's called the flu season. It's a pandemic. It hits the whole world. Herd immunity has to hit 10 to 15% of the population for things to die off. That's the way it was with the Black Plague in Europe, and that's the way it's going to be with this. The entire population does not get wiped out with any infection. It does not work that way. If it were the case, we'd have no Native Americans, we'd have no Hawaiians. They got wiped out by ordinary illnesses like measles, chickenpox, because they did not have any cellular immunity, but we do. Why is it that 95% of the population that gets exposed to COVID doesn't even know they got sick? Because of cellular immunity. The humoral immunity is what we're dealing with the injections. Okay, that's antibodies. So what is it going to take? It's probably going to take an infection rate of below 5%, usually 3 to 5%, and then things are going to open up like crazy.
Nice.
Stay safe, but it's always nice to know, A, whether you've been sick, and get the darned inoculation.
Fair enough. When we come back, we'll talk about sleep, melatonin, and we're answering a lot of questions that are coming in on the text line. You can also phone in if you want to talk to the doc, 407-422-1212. This is Stages of Life Radio on News Radio WFLA Orlando. All right. This is only a 3-minute break.
Good.
Uh-huh.
Means I don't have to be retrained between.
Right. Okay, you got a lot of questions online here.
Let's knock them down.
COVID, family member positive, 14 days out, mild symptoms, CDC info changing, 10 to 14 days now, quarantine, no longer contagious after 10 days?
Not true. Okay, this is where the CDC has got it wrong, and they're going to continue to get it wrong until long after the pandemic passes.
Fair enough.
They operate about 8 to 12 weeks behind everybody else with regards to seeing what's going on. I have patients in my office that we do PCRs for, and that's the most sensitive of all of the testing, that have remained positive for 6 to 8 weeks. You keep testing them, they keep testing positive. Other folks, 4 to 5 days, they're done. It has to do with the individual. So if you are sending somebody back to school, like a teacher who's going to be in contact with 30 kids, including yours, you really are going to want to recheck them before you send them back. Children, they tend to clear it very, very quickly. But adults, maybe not so much. The two people I'm thinking about were a husband and wife team from Kissimmee, and they remained positive. They were young. They're in their 30s. Didn't make any sense. The kids did not come down with it. Just because your spouse gets it doesn't mean you will. So how infectious is this? You're using the same pillow. You're using the same cutlery.
Food.
Yeah. And yet, husband gets it, wife does not. Wife gets it, husband doesn't get it. It's about like a lot of things that way, don't you think?
Yeah.
So,
it is.
but in terms of COVID, so it's fascinating in terms of its infectiousness.
Okay.
So if it were me, I would get the PCR, and we charge $102 to do it. So it's not like a bank breaker. $102, within 30, for the travel people, we put them at the head of the line. Everybody else, you wait 36 hours.
All right, 1 minute. Sarah Grace wants to know, COVID-19 contains spike glycoprotein component from HIV patented by Dr. Fauci. Is a vaccine going to contain that?
No.
Will it alter your RNA?
No. RNA is the nature of the control mechanism within the virus. What you do is you look at the proteins on the outside, and then you develop antibodies to them. So the inoculations are going to probably be denatured proteins. Could be a little bit of spike. It could be just developed from the COVID virids. These are just packets of information, not including RNA, just the protein envelopes. So there are a bunch of different approaches to inoculations, but you rarely give an inoculation to the RNA itself because the antibodies are not that specific. So it's going to go against the proteins in the envelope is what they call it.
Tanya will answer your question during this segment
Good
here.
question.
Yeah. What was that you told the lady with the back thing?
Oh, it's a bursitis. It's called intraspinous bursa. Okay, and it's actually got a name. It's a small structure, but it hurts.
All right.
But it's fixable. Yeah, call us and we'll take care of it. That's a very easy thing. God, I love that part music.
Welcome back to Stages of Life Radio. You gotta love it, man.
Yeah,
this is great,
that's
man.
Linda. Love Linda.
Yep, she works it. Anyway. Speaking of working it. Okay, so we are taking medical questions. If you have them, we might have an answer for. I won't. I don't know anything. Yeah.
I bet you will. You probably learn after about a year.
I do know a lot of, because we've been doing this for a while together. But Dr. David Klein is taking your calls at 407-422-1212. And the text line is on craziness here.
Good.
23680 if you want to check in there. Got one here, says, "Hi Doc, are your new shows here on WFLA archived anywhere? I'd like to listen to the first 15 minutes again. Cheers."
Okay, you were just listening to the person that would have the answer to that. Okay, because she's the one. Melissa here is the one that takes the shows and flips them up to the webinar.
Proverbial clouds.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you give us a couple more weeks, they'll be all up on iHeart. But at the moment, yes, they are available. And of course, if you are a social media person, you can go to our Facebook page at Stages of Life Medical Institute, and the videos are there, so you can just pop around there, and you get to look at Doc's beautiful face.
You gotta love that too. Yeah. So they're there for you, and the answer to your question is yes. Is it all in one place? The answer is no. But we have thousands of hours from our other station, and that is eventually going to be up in the cloud also.
Right. Plus, you can back shows with tons and tons of video and information on the YouTube page at Stages of Life Medical Institute. So just keep checking it out, and appreciate you coming on board. Tell your friends that Doc is here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. Tanya said she woke up with SI joint pain on the right side every morning. It goes away after she walks a bit. Is this typical arthritis pain? I'm 68. Other than stretching, what else can I do? I can't take glucosamine.
Don't need it. Go on.
Because I'm allergic to shellfish.
Okay, here's the deal. Is the SI joint is one of the most. It's the largest joint in your body, and it's the one that's most likely to get nailed in the back. So it's kind of shaped like a cashew nut if you sliced it long ways. So what do you do about this? First thing, okay, this is gonna make some enemies in my community, but chiropractic helps this a lot. This is one where you go in there and don't let them sell you on a 15 treatment package to be done X, Y, and Z. Now what they do is they lie you down, cross one leg over the other, and do what's called an AS manipulation. It cracks that joint and you feel pretty good. You do this every week or two and it'll keep you going. You can do that yourself. What I typically do when I have my hands on folks is I put them on a medication called meloxicam. very specifically meloxicam in this environment. Piroxicam is also useful, but it causes photosensitivity more so than the meloxicam does, and we live in Florida, and I don't like my patients getting red and bumpy.
Yeah.
So meloxicam is specific for the SI joint because it hits something called the leukotriene pathway. Now, do I expect you to remember that? The answer is no, but there's a reason why this works better than the other anti-inflammatories. So what do? You're 68, you take 7.5 milligrams at bedtime, and then you're going to wake up feeling just fine. All right? But the chiropractor is actually very beneficial for this. Okay? You just have to find a good one, and they come in all flavors. Most of them not so good. So ask around and find out who's been around a long time. Somebody with gray hair, typically, and big arms, because this is the biggest joint in your body. And
the name like Olga.
Yeah. And what you do is you lie down your back, and I've had this done. All right? This is not a bad thing. My chiropractor, the guy that I went to for years, passed away, and I'm really just, I'm rather
all tied up
I'm
about it?
tentative about finding somebody to replace this guy. Okay,
gotcha.
but that's what I would do if I were you. Next question.
Fair enough. Let's see. Well, we started off the show. You talked about sleep and how darn important it is.
Yeah.
Then you rambled off a bunch of terrible, terrible drugs that people should not
Correct.
take.
So what can you take?
Exactly.
Yeah, this is going to be the basis of the whole show. We kind of did get distracted from it, and I thank you for bringing me back.
It's amazing I got there.
It's amazing. But it does work. So typically what I do is I look at the body and try to fix it. So what hormone is it that puts you to sleep? And you're going to go, oh, it's going to be melatonin. You'd be wrong.
Nope.
Okay? It's another one. It's called GABA, which stands for GABA-aminobutyric acid. Not gabapentin. That's a drug. It does something else. Not even have anything to do with GABA, as it turns out. So GABA will start the sleep cycle. It doesn't keep you asleep. So I'll start people on 750 to 1,500 milligrams of GABA, and that will knock most everybody out. Some people, not so much, but most, yes. What do I add to it? An amino acid called L-theanine. So we've got a neurotransmitter and an amino acid. L-theanine is the substance that's in turkey that keeps you sleepy on Thanksgiving. So what do? You end up knocking down 200 milligrams of that, which is roughly the equivalent of what you would get from a quarter of a pound of sliced turkey. Third thing, okay, so you're going to go, well, what else do I really need? And this is where it gets interesting because it depends on the person's pathology. If they are just wound too tight, okay, which is a lot of the people listening in right now, I use an amino acid called L-glycine. So L-glycine, what does that do? It's a sopophoric. It is the most common of all neurotransmitters that there is. There's more L-glycine floating around in these synapses than any other neurotransmitter. Not acetylcholine. Oh, no. You would be wrong. L-glycine. So what does it do? It deepens your plane of sleep. The dosage is between 1 and 2 grams of L-glycine. Start off with 1 because it usually does the job. You use all 3 together and you're probably going to sleep like a baby. Now, if you find yourself waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning after you've done the above, that usually means you're deficient in cortisol. That requires me. I have to take care of that.
Yeah.
That's something that gets real specific real quick.
Okay. All right. So here's a quick question
Sure.
that came to mind. I mentioned it when we started out the show. Female incontinence. It happens.
It happens to a lot of women.
Yeah.
It's 30-40% of the population after you hit about 60.
Can we fix that?
It's
'Cause,
fixable.
I mean, I don't want people laughing at me or anything, but
They
it's,
do
you
now.
know, things happen. Well, I know. I mean, aside from the usual deal.
Yeah.
Melissa Fox is a GT problem. But no, seriously, and I don't laugh at a lot, but when I do, what the heck?
Well, you don't have a lot of muscular control over control of urination anyway. That's just the way the female watering system is set up. However, if that muscle down there, the sphincter, is damaged, it could be damaged from childbirth. It could be damaged from trauma. It could be damaged from just getting older, or it could be hormonally induced. Not enough estrogen, not enough progesterone. And then the tissues down there tend to wither away a bit. And so you tend to expect this to happen. So there are whole aisles in the grocery store devoted to female urinary incontinence. Lots of products you can pick from, but none of them fix the underlying issue.
No, they all deal with the symptoms.
They deal with the symptom.
Wear baby, big girl diapers.
Yeah, and something that controls the stink. Okay. Well, guess what? That's just really inadequate. For guys, there's not much you can do to fix this. Not
Really?
this way. Yeah, the Votiva doesn't work well for guys. There's not that entry point.
I know how it works. It sounds painful.
Yeah,
if it works for a guy.
No, in fact, it's unseemly.
Uh.
But we have a technique called Votiva. Okay, and it's been around for several years, and it involves the insertion of a catheter about as thick around as perhaps a cheese stick. Okay, now my wife Tess does not like me to use that, but I can't think of anything. I like cheese sticks. Okay, just so you know. And so, yeah, a bigger pen than that. Okay, and so, but a cheese stick is just about it. You know, every time I eat a cheese stick, I think about that Votiva.
Would you stop?
Not really. Okay, so what do? On the end of this thing, and it's about 14 inches long, and it doesn't go all the way in. Okay, it's just the handle. But on the end of it is a little radio frequency generator, and it heats the tissue up at a depth of about half an inch to 41 degrees centigrade.
Okay.
Now you do this for 20 minutes, and then it starts a process where the tissue starts to tighten up. You know, it induces what's called fibroblast proliferation. What this means is that it's starting a scar tissue process on the inside. Your body starts to heal. It induces a healing process. Very cool.
Yeah.
So the vaginal canal starts to tighten up. In the process of doing that, wouldn't you know it? Okay, the urinary incontinence tends to go away. Now, you can't make people promises. You can't guarantee that this is going to work, but it works well enough. Okay, a lot of people find very, very, very satisfactory results from this. The main side effect of it, people say, what's the side effect of it?
Wait, there's a side effect?
There's a side effect. And the side effect is that it tightens up the vaginal canal socially. Okay, well, that can sometimes be a problem, right? Although not typically. Okay, so what does it mean? It means you're going to become more popular as you were when you were in high school. Does it work? The answer is yes.
Did you once refer to it as trying to jam a cork back in the champagne
No, it's
bottle?
like trying to get a champagne cork back in the bottle. You know, if you're a champagne drinker, you'll understand entirely what that's all about.
Okay.
So is that a good thing? The answer is it's a very, very good thing. Is it expensive? The answer is no. It's about between $1,200 and $1,400. It's 3 treatments, so it's again it's about $400 per treatment. It doesn't hurt. It takes 20 minutes. I've had people sleep through it. You know, and so it's like, you know, just no big deal. You come in over lunch and we could do it.
Pretty impressive
It's
stuff
very
right there.
cool.
Kathy's got a question. She
Sure.
said, how can family members know when they're safe from COVID infected positive household members?
Yeah, you send them over. We do a PCR. We'll know. We'll know if they are able to get it to our office before, let's say, 10 or 11 in the morning. Mm-hmm. We can have that data by 3 o'clock in the morning, the following morning.
Oh, okay.
So it's nothing to it. You know, so it's about 20 hours later. You know, if they're not infectious on the PCR, you're good to go. Mm-hmm. The antigen studies are much less reliable. Okay, so you can do it. But again, the PCRs, if you go to the big box labs, it's about $250. We do it for $102. So if you really want to know, that's how you do it. What I'll advise you to do, okay, is to get that same individual and the family checked for quantitative IgG antibodies. Find out if you're already immune. So we do a lot of that too. We're the first in the country to be able to do IgG quantitatively. The way we did this actually was by calibrating the machines against something called coronavirus virids. So were we able to do it? Yes, actually. I was an analytical chemist before I was a doc, and I enjoy the challenge of doing stuff that other people find it difficult to understand.
Look at that. Yeah. Would you have been an alchemist back in the day?
I would have been, actually.
Yeah, I think you would have.
Yeah.
But you would have worn one of them wizard hats.
Well, they would have called me Paracelsus. I would have been good.
Nice. I like it. We're listening to Dr. David Klein expound on all things medical. It's Stages of Life Radio. If you want to check in, talk to the doc, 407-422-1212, or you can continue to text us at 23680 and follow us on Facebook at Stages of Life Medical Institute. We'll be right back. You are listening to Stages of Life Radio on News Radio WFLA Orlando.
Sweet.
Push the damn button. All right. This is
Live radio.
Yeah.
Fun.
It's only a 2-minute break. You know what?
Back in the day, we used to do this ham radio thing. CQ, CQ, CQ. You know, you start talking to people all over the place. You wonder why. You know, I mean, haven't you done enough talking already? Well, I'm speaking to somebody in Adelaide, Australia. Why? Let them sleep. You know, why are you bothering them? Yeah. Oh, well, I'm talking to the folks up in the space capsules. Oh, okay, good. Okay, I've got this hat on that tells me I can talk to folks in Mars.
All right. You got a suggestion? You're up the text line for a BOS Chiropractic, Tuscarora Road in Winter Spring.
Do I have a suggestion?
No. They're telling you.
Oh, good. Okay. Well,
They're looking down in Winter Springs there. So.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'll look into you guys. Usually, what I do is I drop in, unannounced.
Hi.
So okay, show me around your place.
Right. We're
It's
here.
called vetting. I
Yeah.
do that with pharmacies all the time.
There's nothing wrong with the vetting of pharmacy. Thanks everyone for watching us on Facebook Live as well. We really appreciate you sharing this. And now it's also on Periscope, and I think it might be on YouTube until they yell at me, because they're always yelling at me.
Why?
But I send all those yells to an email box that I rarely check. I opened up the other day. I was like, oh, some for you too.
Yeah.
I know. All right, let's see. So where are we? We are 40 seconds away from getting back into this again. Sleep supplements. We're going to have some questions about that.
Sure.
And also flu shot, because we can't forget that.
Get
this
your
is the month.
darn flu shot. Okay,
Right.
here's the real deal. Okay, we're in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic, right? What's the difference between flu and coronavirus in terms of your symptomatology? And the answer is nothing.
How would I
So
get answers?
yeah, you got get your flu shot. And they'll give you a $10 coupon at Publix. Go to Publix, get your flu
It's
shot, and they give you $10.
All right, 7 seconds. Come on. You didn't let me send that? That's terrible. Text says, Bud shouldn't make you laugh. Welcome back to... Yes, this is Stages of Life Radio, and I am Melissa Fox. And in the last segment, we were talking to Dr. David Klein about female incontinence, urinary incontinence. And I mentioned that, I use myself as an example, whether or not that's actually true. Someone has texted in at 23680. Doesn't Bud know he shouldn't make you laugh on the morning show?
There you go.
Yeah, I guess. No. All right, so what is the best month to get a flu shot? That question comes off of our Facebook Live
Piece of cake. It's actually the first month that it's available. Okay, the
now,
only
right?
now the only reason I haven't gotten mine is I'm waiting for my wife to give me the green light because she's not feeling right. So you can't go in there with an infection and get it done, or shouldn't.
You should.
So I'll probably go in tomorrow, the day after. So right now is perfect. But again, Publix, God bless them. They have a good pharmacy. They've got a great delicatessen, and they give you $10 for the privilege of giving you a flu shot.
True enough. If you're covered with medical insurance.
Even if you're not.
And there's other places too. They'll do like Advent Health will do a free one. You just got to get there.
But they don't give you the submarine sandwich.
No, you don't get a free sandwich or turkey. But you should go and look into it. And if you can't afford it, CVS and the pharmacies usually do something late September where you just go in and get her done.
It's very, very inexpensive
And
regardless.
necessary.
It is necessary. And what does it do? In 1918, 1919, we had something called the Spanish flu. Now, it didn't start in Spain. It actually started in the United States.
China?
First place. Yeah, no, it wasn't. Well, it could have been China, but we saw it here first. I think it was St. Louis. But they called it the Spanish flu. And I think it was something like 60 million people died. Or some enormous number of people died as a result of that. And they just passed away. There wasn't much anything can do, and it's mostly young people too. Mm-hmm. There were servicemen that died, service women that died, but young people. So what do I think? I think that getting it done is a good idea. More people will die than from coronavirus. Just watch what we're doing, and this is something that is available now. Mm-hmm. Just get it done. We have the anti-vaccine folks. Somebody. That's just like anything else. There are lemmings out there.
Cull the herd, is it?
Yeah, cull the herd. Why? Well, because they don't want those little, nanorobots floating around or whatever it is they're worried about.
There's going to be a national identification medal.
Your kid dies as a result of flu. You're going to feel pretty stupid.
Yeah. So Elizabeth is also watching us on her Facebook Live feed, and she said, does the flu shot mess with the COVID test results?
No, there's no cross-reactivity between those antigens. And why? Because they're different. So, why should the color blue interfere with roses? Okay, I mean, there's
it's apples and
it's not the same thing. Apples and envelopes.
Okay, got it. All right, so
doesn't make any sense.
let's see. And if we get a flu shot now, will it still be good through February
Yes.
when the flu is worse?
Yeah.
Okay.
The influenza vaccine lasts about a year, so it's a good thing. And so,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another one. You were talking earlier, and we have been talking through the show about sleep and how necessary it is. You mentioned some sleep supplements. They want you to clarify the GABA 750 to 1500, the L-glycine 1 to 2 grams.
Yes, very easy. Okay, if you go to stagesoflifevitamins.com.
Okay.
If you buy stuff, that's great, and if you don't, I don't care because essentially it's a free informational site. Go to the search bar and hit GABA, and up comes GABA. It'll talk to you about what the product is. What you're looking for is a 750 milligram dosage. That's the adult size. And you take 1 or 2 of them at bedtime. And typically, I don't want to knock the crud out of people right up front. So I say, okay, I want you to take 2, okay, for the first few days, get your sleep cycle going back again, and then back it down to 1. I take 2 every night. The L-theanine, these are usually 100 milligram capsules, and you take 2 at bedtime. Piece of cake. They're also very cheap. When you're looking at the glycine, you can find this as a powder, and I recommend that you don't do this because it'll turn into a block. Okay, it's hydrophilic. You open it up, and then the next time you look at it, it turns into rock. It's really awful. So you waste a lot of money. The capsules are what you want, and you want to take 1 gram to start. If you have to increase it to 2 grams, you do. That's 2 capsules. Do all 3 of those products, and out you go. If you're a depressive, okay, so if you've got that issue with, you know you're depressed, especially if you're on antidepressants, you take another one called 5-hydroxytryptophan, sometimes known as 5-HTP. The dosage there is 200 milligrams. And the reason is when you take SSRIs or SNRIs, and you know who you are, okay, the Zoloft people of the world, the Prozac people of the world, it deprives your body, it decreases the amount of 5-HTP in the neural clefts. So you have to replace it. How do you do it? By the immediate precursor of serotonin, that's called 5-HTP. So if you're depressed or if you're being treated for depression, you add that to it. And again, the dosage is 200 milligrams. If you take 50 milligrams, nothing will happen. You're wasting your money. So 200. So these are dose related. The difference between a nutrient and a poison is rate, route, and amount. So pay real close attention to timing and the amount that you're taking.
That makes sense.
Very, very important.
So we've mentioned a few different services that you do at Stages of Life Medical Institute. What brought? I mean, I know it initially started as a pain management center.
Yeah. I started off my life actually as a family doc. Then I went into general surgery. Didn't care too much for it. Then I went into anesthesiology and earned a good living doing that. But part of that was intensive care, part of that was obstetrics, and part of it was doing pain work. And I specialized in headache and facial pain. So I developed the largest pain center in the world. We were the first office-based pain center in the United States. And then, I took it public. I had offices in 3 states, had 20-some docs working for me, and I did okay with that. Quit, sold it, retired,
Right.
Did it again, okay? Took it public, sold it, and quit. Moved down here to retire. So I'm in retirement right now. And I work 60 hours a week.
No, you're not in retirement. No, you're not.
I can't retire. But I won't hire any other
But the
docs.
pain management that we talk about,
I've done this.
is not your opioids. If anything, it's avoiding those type of
you don't need it.
horribly addictive medications.
Yeah, you don't want this. Okay, so again, I am a pain doc. I've got 5 board certifications, 3 of which, oddly enough, are in pain.
Yeah.
But I don't do as much pain work as I do diagnostics. It's like the lady with the backache. That's easy. She'd walk in, if I'm correct, she'd walk in hurting and she'd walk out without. No opiates necessary. We do, in fact, treat opiate addiction to get people off of it.
There you go.
And then there's some people that you'll never get off of them because the problem is so miserable or they're constitutionally unable to do so. So like my wife has had 6 neck surgeries. She broke her neck. She doesn't take a single bit of pain medication. Okay? Very few people can say that.
Right.
All right? So if anything, she's pretty strong constitutionally, even if she's mad at me right now about the cheese sticks. She sent me a text message that said, "I'm taking away your cheese sticks." Because she really, she does not like
Go
that.
with Slim Jim.
Well,
It's about
ooh.
the same as a pepperoni stick.
You know,
right?
it's close, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
A
could do
little
that.
beef jerky. It's beef jerky's better.
Well, you remember the pickled sausages?
Yeah.
What about that? Like
Oh yeah,
a pickled
you always got
sausage.
those in the bars.
Yeah, the
so-
Bahama Mamas. I love those things.
Yeah.
Big Mamas. Yeah,
Yeah,
those
big
are
mamas.
good.
Yeah. So yeah, it's about as big as a Big Mama.
Not really
that's
meat.
just the way I want to describe the Votiva.
Very good. Okay. Sarah Gray says, any figures on the percentage of COVID victims who got the flu shot in 2019 vis-a-vis senior deaths versus homeless deaths? Because most seniors got the shot. Most homeless people did not.
No, actually, I don't know that that's true either.
Yeah, I was going to
So,
say that
yeah.
a lot of that is not true.
That's not true.
Homeless
You know,
people do get the shots
yeah,
because they go through those
They go
programs.
straight to the health department. So no, I don't have that data. If you could make yourself an expert in that long before I will be. Because why? Because it's very transiently valuable data. What you really care about, okay, is whether or not you are protected, whether you are going to get sick, or better yet, whether you're going to miss any time from work. Because you do. Some people actually get paid time off. I do not. So when I'm down with the sickness, whatever that tune was, okay, I don't get paid. When you have a few days worth of sick leave and you get sick with the flu, you blow it. So for a free flu shot, okay, it'll keep you from losing time unnecessarily.
So, Doc, we're going to do this again next Sunday, 4 o'clock?
God willing.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we can be reached at Stages of Life Medical Institute, which is in fact a piano's throw off of I-4.
I love that.
At 407-679-3337. Ask for Iris. She will take care of you. We can be seen on stagesofliferadio.com and suffernomore.com.
See you next week.
You've been listening to Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein. Check out stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com or stop by 1917 Booth Circle in Longwood near the intersection of I-4 and 434. Call 407-679-3337. That's 407-679-3337. Dr. Klein accepts most insurance and Medicare too. Join us next Sunday at 4 p.m. on News Radio WFLA Orlando.